This is the Shopware Hub Cast, where your host Sander Mangel and Dennis Höting, resident Community Hub expert and Director of Product Development at Shopware, uncover the stories of the people that make our community. In this episode, we are talking to Ben Marks, Director Global Market Development at Shopware and host of the Commerce Famous podcast. This is a crossover episode, originally recorded for Commerce Famous, and Ben is interviewing Dennis and Sander.
Hey everyone, it's Ben Marks from Shopware. With me today, Sander Mangel, my longtime friend and colleague, and Dennis Höting, my pretty much also, now at this point, longtime friend and colleague. We are going to be here talking about some of the new things coming out of Shopware. Sander, you are actually at an event right now. What are you doing?
Absolutely. I'm at the world famous Webwinkelvakdagen in Netherlands. World famous in Netherlands. Wrapping Shopware. We have a stand here, hooking up with the community, chatting about live e-commerce mostly, which is good. We actually have a stand with, I think, 4 or 5 partners on the booth. It's a prime example of community.
Nice. That's lovely. And I've heard the tickets are worth every guilder. Dennis Höting, what do you do at Shopware and where are you doing it from?
Yeah, well, I'm located in Germany, quite near to our headquarters. And I'm at Shopware for quite a while, for 11 and a half years now. I'm currently working as a director in our product department, and in that role, being responsible and accountable for some of the components in our product department that are mainly not our main product, Shopware itself, but components around it, including our website, documentation platforms, and also a new endeavor we are doing here, which is our Shopware Community Hub.
That sounds like quite the scope, but I guess it's one of the things that's really relevant to 2025. Shopware. I think in my 4 years at Shopware, and I should introduce myself as well. I'm Ben Marks. I am currently resident in the state of Pollen. That is South Carolina. Just overnight, we've had an explosion of just yellow golden dust from the trees. So that's why I might sound a little bit stuffy. But we're not here to talk about the annual cycle of life that keeps things going. We're here to talk about Shopware, and specifically something that Shopware's been working on since, it's been over a year, right, Dennis?
It's about to be a year. So I think we started with the first ideation in March, April or something, and started getting into it in, I would say, May. So we started right away.
So Dennis, you and I both report to the same boss, Mark Stanley, who I think I hope you would agree, has been just a fantastic addition to Shopware's leadership team. Chief Product and Technical Officer, too smart to do one thing. And it was his idea, right? The Community Hub?
Yeah, it was definitely his input, really identifying the need of pushing something to help move our community forward and support our community as one of the most important assets that we are having. So we were searching for a system that eases learning, eases continuous learning and onboarding, of course, and make sure that all the things happening in our community can be digested and that we identify synergy effects and work together as an open source community. So it was his input, clearly, yeah.
Well, and one of the things I've really liked about him is he's kind of stepped into this, you've been at Shopware longer than I have, but this, I would call it the modern era of Shopware. Not to imply that Shopware hasn't always been modern, but just I think there's a clear distinction between Shopware, from certainly back in the Shopware 5 era, right? But then really in the last couple of years, I think Shopware has done the work to transform itself into a sustainable business, right? That actually can be around, in the next 10 years to help drive what it means to be, an e-commerce platform and what it's like to be in the e-commerce business forward. So when we think about some of the things that we're doing, obviously Shopware gets to build features all day. that's one of the things that we get to do. And ideally, because we're open source, because we have this great ecosystem, that allows us to be nimble and out in front of even the bigger SaaS platforms. But in doing this work, we have to do it. Well, we can't do it in a vacuum. Like, we have to do this work in full collaboration with the ecosystem. And I think that was part of the inspiration behind creating the hub. And I think you've given a good product description, but from my perspective, it creates a space for one of the most important things in my mind when it comes to ecosystems, because it's never just about what individuals are doing and putting out there, what a company is doing and putting out there. It's about how everyone doing this work in the space connect with each other. And so the ability to have this kind of social component, but also visibility into the various places where Shopware things are happening is really, really cool. So Sander, I know you've been kind of community organizing for many, many years. I think the first time I met you in person after meeting you online was at a small conference you were putting together in the Netherlands. Is that right?
I think it was Rotterdam, right?
Yes, it was. It was. Yeah, I think it was like a nice little brewery or something, right?
Yeah. That was good old times. Yeah, and I think that just proves that community is everywhere, and it's also hard to find that community, right? It's for the organizers, it's hard to reach out to people that are not in your bubble, and at the same time, for people not in the bubble, it's hard to kind of tap into that and figure out what's going on. Like last night is a prime example. We had the pre-party, the Shopper United pre-party here in Utrecht before the event.
Don't tell me I wasn't there. It didn't happen.
I know. I'm sorry. It was amazing,
it was good,
right? Because
it was good.
There were so many people that I hadn't seen for half a year, whatever. A couple of people like Kostabar from Finland was dropping in. I think they were the furthest away, and they were like, "Oh, this is amazing! You have a whole community here, right?" And it's just. But at the same time, there were a lot of familiar faces. I would have loved to seen like 90% new people, right? So it just shows that we need a central place, where you can kind of advertise the community.
Yep. And actually, I'm really glad I asked you that question, because that's one of the things that even I had to learn when I taught myself programming. And spoiler, kids, I'm not a developer's developer, so that was. I'm not saying that's much of an accomplishment, but taught myself programming, started solving problems. Those gravitated towards e-commerce problems, eventually stumble into the open source world. And I had no idea that open source was so much more than the code. In fact, the code is probably the least interesting thing about open source, right? Because it's the people. And it's the people, and the people especially who choose to give up sometimes weekends or evenings, come together and talk about the things that they're doing. And there's so much value in that. Right. So you're at this big e-commerce conference in the Netherlands, Sander. I know, Dennis, you get to go to a lot of the Shopware related conferences in and around DACH. There's so much value when people get together and they talk about what it is that they do, why they do it, what their motivations are, and they can actually, discuss business, discuss techniques. We are talking about taking that in-person experience that isn't always there for everyone, but making it incredibly online all the time, and providing sort of different lanes of experience. I want to get into the capabilities of the hub in a second. Sander, you've described the community and the fellowship around open source, the Shopware ecosystem perfectly. Dennis, what is your experience? What is your experience of the Shopware ecosystem? Do you have a favorite moment or event that you've been to over the years? That's a very pregnant question, because now you got to pick favorites.
That's really, really hard to pick. But one thing that I always enjoy in those events is, I always say it feels a bit like family, at least say friendship, but I would rather say family. Like it's the same fellas again. People know each other, but still, yet it is open, like inviting for everybody else. Everybody inviting you to others, and that just proves the importance of having connection to other people in the community who maybe have the same challenges or maybe dealt with something similar, and just getting into exchange, getting input. So I see that everybody on those conferences, on those fairs, on those meetups, on those meetings with the community is always thriving afterwards because they are full with input of others. And that's like, it's giving so much energy, right? That's the one I enjoy most.
Yeah, I really actually, anyone who knows me knows how painful it is for me to be at home, even with my lovely dog laying across my feet, but to be at home while the community's gathering in the Netherlands, for example. But that is, being at these events is really, it's such a privilege. But at the end of the day, it's all about connections, facilitating connections. This is what we hope the hub does. So Dennis, I mean, can we talk about, as kind of the head of the project, can we talk about what all has gone into, and just for full background, folks, like when Mark Stanley, frustratingly smart guy that he is, suggested that Shopware create this space, and this was well over a year ago that he was talking about it, I will fully own that I was dubious on this. I really thought that we could kind of cobble together. There are platforms that do this kind of thing, and there's nothing wrong with those platforms. But I really thought we should not devote so much of our internal product and engineering, like time and talent, into this effort, because I knew it was going to be a big thing. And I couldn't possibly imagine that we would build something so phenomenally cool. And I mean, I'm not, this is not me, this is not puffery, this is not me just, sort of playing inside baseball or just loving the place that sends me a paycheck. This is genuine appreciation as someone who's had to look at different community systems over the years. Shopware's really built something really cool. How did we even figure out what it is we needed to build? I mean, do you remember those early ideation stages? And Sander, feel free to jump in, because I assume we brought you into some of these discussions. I think I heard about it, sort of like, what should we have? What shouldn't we have? But we'll start off with Dennis, just kind of from a requirements gathering standpoint.
Yeah. So, I would say basically, we started with an idea of, we want to solve the sometimes said the bag of bits, and getting things that are kind of everywhere,
bag of bits,
that kind of stuff, the spaghetti mess. It was like we wanted to sort a few things out, right? And
sorry, let me just jump in real fast. So Mark Stanley, folks, if you don't know, he's from Brighton in the UK, and so when he says it, it's bag of bits. I can't do his accent justice. It's a lovely accent, and it is also how he describes my job, bag of bits, or actually better, describes how my job shouldn't be, but it's a bag of bits, right? Because it is that unwashed mass of ecosystem. Sorry, I feel like that was just, you used the term. I think it was important to clarify, because it occurs to me that this is what we're doing. We're collecting all of that community energy in one place. I interrupted you. Please go.
What we did here is we decided, okay, let's get into rapid prototyping and see what's possible. And of course, we discussed, okay, can we just use systems that are out there, either LMS for learning stuff. We knew that learning is one of the biggest challenges that we want to solve, but also for integrating all those different sources. There's systems out there, but they very quickly identified that the most important fact that we have to deal with here is that the community hub. So what we are building here, it cannot be something that we are just building for the community. It has to be something that is built with the community, because it really has to fit the requirements and the needs of the community. So what we did is we started putting something together, and in really, really early stages got into deep conversations with members of the community. And that just like 6 weeks after we had the first idea on the SCD last year, already talked with the first people about the idea and about what that could be and all that kind of stuff. And that really led us to get insights of how exactly should we form that. And that's definitely something that we couldn't have formed with a standard system. And then we just progressed and integrated this and put together a system that integrates signals from all over the community, may it be Slack, may it be Stack Overflow, or GitHub, of course, or blog spots, or podcasts and webinars and YouTube, and of course content directed to the hub instantly. All of that should be in one central space, and then directing to those sources, making it easy for the members of the community to digest that content and to understand, okay, what's going on right now in the community? What's the pulse of the community right now? Besides the big challenge of we want to provide high quality, up-to-date learning content that really enables our members to be successful with Shopware. So that's like the big two challenges that we really identified as a rough idea in the beginning, but then started putting together as clear solutions with the community. And that was extremely important. So we called that exclusive MVP phase with a few handful of community members for a few months, and then really early got into an open beta phase and introducing everybody in the community to join and to give feedback and to provide ideas. And I guess that's the power of it. Yeah.
Sander, you've been doing community building for a long time, right? I don't know if it's just like a normal Dutch thing. You guys have built community over the centuries. You've taken different approaches. But sorry, I got to get in and dig whenever I can because I love the Dutch. Please let me join. But from your perspective and having watched both ecosystems, online ecosystems evolve around software products over the years, this modern moment, right? There are lots of ways. In fact, it's really distracting how online we are and how many sort of informational inputs we receive as individuals. Like I heard working on a local city council, we had a consultant come in, and I think we're trying to we're a small 10-kilometer long island, and the guy doing the work for us, where we're trying to learn how to advocate for ourselves and connect with the outside communities and stuff, says like, hey, when you're trying to put your message out there, you're competing against, I think he said 30,000 informational inputs per freaking day, right? So in that context, so that's community building used to be easier back in the day because it was sort of like throw up a forum and let people interact. Now you really have to be engaging and create a space for people to put their energy into. What do you look for, Sander, in an online facility like we've tried to create here with the Hub?
Yeah, that's a good question, I think. I mean, there's so much content out there, and I think especially with ChatGPT, it's only gotten worse, right? Because it's so easy to create content. I think first and foremost, you need to be able to provide quality, right? Community is at the end of the day about getting enablement, right? It's about people sharing, sure, but at the end of the day, people do this because they feel that they can get enablement out of it. For themselves, for others, what have you. So learning, that's it. That's what we want to do.
Well, I mean, and that was, I have to say, sorry, that was my pathway into the open source ecosystem. Was first, I was taught, I was trying to solve a problem. I was taught by one of the masters in the space, a guy named Vinay Kopp. And I didn't quite understand that the learning is actually a big component in open source, right? It's because it's sort of certainly in English we have the idiom of you keep the ladder there for the person behind you, right? And there's very much that spirit of, hey, once you learn something, you can't pay someone for what you've been taught. All you can do, you can't pay them money, but you can teach the next people coming up the ladder. Is that kind of what you're getting at there, Sander?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and it's, at the same time, you learn that it can be small things, right? It doesn't need to be a 6-page essay on how to do events in Shopware. No, it can just be, if you do this, and this, quick templates become a whole lot easier to work with, right? It's those small knowledge snippets that we share on a daily basis. And I think that is what a high quality community is, that consistent level of quality learning, and to make it easier for others to do that, right? A prime example is Stack Overflow. It's a great platform to learn and to teach. At the same time, we also see that there's a lot of moderation needed to keep it at that quality level, right?
Yep. I am familiar with the Stack Overflow. Definitely did half of my early career based off Stack Overflow posts. So
yeah, right. And I think a lot of people did, right? And I think what Shopware has done here, what is very important, is they create a place where they can build a solid foundation, having been involved in some of the learning paths that we created, right? Not just have documentation, but have learning paths, ways to get on board with Shopware. So there's this solid foundation. And then on top of that, the community can start to build.
And Dennis, actually, I wanted to bring that in. So thank you for calling that out, Sander, because I've been involved with education initiatives before. They're critical, they're crucial. I probably all remember working in our respective environments kind of before there was what I would call competent, like learning paths or education. So Dennis, I think one of the things that I value, gosh, if I had to pick a favorite, feature in the hub, the fact that you can, as an individual, you can come in. You don't have to interact right away. It's like you don't have to walk into the cocktail party when you're not the cocktail party type, but you can walk in the door. You don't have to say hi to anyone. You can get right to work. You can find these educational pathways. That is, for me, so critical. So that's also shouldn't be lost in what we talk about Shopware's investment in the ecosystem, to create the hub, is the reinvestment in education. So Shopware has had education in the past, right? Well, I say in the past, it's always been there. But if we're being open and authentic, the investment in that education, like we had, I think our education went up to Shopware like 6.2. And then we kind of let it, I'm not going to say die on the vine, because if you learn the things for Shopware 6.2, either operationally or as a developer, like there's been a ton of value in there. But one of the most challenging things, what are some of the hardest problems in computer science? Like naming things, documentation, and then enablement. So that's 4 things, and then there's off by 1 errors. Hey, that's a computer joke, maybe not a good one. But I've watched education efforts truly die on the vine over the years, right? Because it doesn't directly generate revenue, and so it's really hard for companies to make the decision to invest, and help it move forward. With the hub, I think I see us Shopware really investing in education. I think I see us not only investing in education like initially, but we've basically set an expectation and a commitment that education has to stay up to date. Because guess what? When you have stuff like this all gathered in one place and you have the community gathering around it, you end up with like really strong motivation as a company to keep up the content. And then also, I think one of the goals is that we'll have the capability to let people create their own educational content, right? So you can dive deep on single topics. If you want to go into one area of functionality for Shopware, like B2B or something else, we want actually the practitioners to be creating content. Can you talk about that journey, Dennis? And
a few things to cover here. So yes, we are heavily investing into not only the hub as a system. So we have a team like fully dedicated to only the hub as a system. Moving that forward, it is becoming a complex system, and we are like heavily investing in that, and everybody is fully behind that, to that investment into community, because it is free, it is for everybody, but it just makes so much sense. And we have an additional team really investing into the learning content and into creating that content for this academic content, which is not like pure videos, but like text first content will be put to a higher quality digestion level, maybe also utilizing AI. We are still putting that as text first, because maintenance and the content being up to date is so incredibly important. So we have to be sure that we cope with the speed of our system. And that's why this is so important. Yes, it is also planned to have an easy way for community members to provide learning content here as well. So we are talking about like a Shopware Mentors program, or just an open and an easy possibility for members of the community to provide like small knowledge bits, maybe just an idea or just a different view on a very specific topic to get into the hub, so that others can appreciate that. And that's something, this whole notion of appreciation and celebration of our combined contribution is something that is key to the hub, after all.
That reminds me of one of the early like ideation, discussions. I think actually one of the first times I met Mark Stanley at a pub in London, one of the oldest pubs, by the way. His suggestion, not mine, was, how do we get people to recognize their expertise and find the natural leaders like in specific areas, right? Do you know a lot about shipping, like the logic that has to go into like how you model addresses and how you get things where they're going, or something even as nuanced as totals calculation, like how do you sort like when are taxes taken? What are the rules applied to taxes in different regions, right? So you might be operating in multiple geographies and the rules for like, if you offer a discount, well, is the full amount like still taxed but doesn't apply to the discount? Is shipping taxed? Just as one of the myriad examples of how various and just at the end of the day, arbitrary all of the rules that could go into commerce are. So naturally people are going to learn more and more about these different areas.
Yeah.
We wanted to create a space, we wanted to create a facility for people to be able to you could say show off their expertise. For some people, it's an imperative. And this is actually, I think, very true in open source. They feel an imperative when they know something well. They really, back to that whole learning idea, they want to share that knowledge. And it looks like, to me, the hub facilitates this kind of guild approach.
Let me give an example for that. Like in the hub, like it is, while it is like text content, like structured in a learning path consisting of different courses, consisting of different units, is like bite-sized learning pieces. Every unit, course, and learning path actually has a capability that members can add comments to it, and then they can ask questions or they can add to the content. So in every unit, if somebody has an addition of, hey, in that context, this is, by the way, a good way to approach it, those things can be appreciated by other members with a little heart, with a little kudo. And then for that context of that learning path, we have a little leaderboard, a kudos leaderboard, so that basically domain experts in that field can thrive. And that interactivity, I think, is a crucial part, not only for us as feedback, but also it adds value to the whole learning experience, because it's not only provided by us, it's provided by the community and added.
I don't think I've heard the singular form of kudos verbalized, and I'm here for it. But the point that you made, Dennis, is that people can absolutely say, like, just really easily say, like, hey, this was valuable for me. This interaction, this thing that happened. I actually haven't really thought. It's like sort of the ability to provide like that direct input that, like, hey, this was valuable to me, is orthogonal, right? I mean, it's across the whole system. It may not actually be implemented in an orthogonal way, but and that's probably a good thing. And I might be pilloried for using the term, but no, it's about, I think it gets back to the core philosophy behind the hub, which is that the interaction is the thing. So, I mean, we had this famous, sort of polemic dude in the US back in the Clinton era, right, in the 90s. He said that a certain president won a candidacy because, it's the economy, stupid. And if we had to have that sort of it's the economy, stupid moment or characteristic of the hub, it's all about, of course, it's the interaction, but it's also about the value of the interaction. And I think the way the hub has been organized is that anything good, it doesn't matter the lane it's in, whether it's, learning or contribution via code or documentation or whatever it is, it's the ability for the good stuff all the good stuff to bubble up to the top. Sander, as a longtime expert in this area, you get to say whether or not we've done the good thing here. I think you've basically said as much. I'm going to ask a question that I know the answer to for myself, but I have always looked up to. I have a couple of examples. I think we did really good work when I was at my previous employer, creating a space for contribution and well, really for recognizing contribution, right? Because the contribution was happening naturally. Another community ecosystem that I've looked up to, and I think it's really important to call out these other ecosystems, even if they might be competitors. Salesforce has Trailblazers, right? It's incredible branding, and anyone working in software or I don't know, certainly in our space should be familiar with Salesforce, and should probably look at what they have built over there. And I love it because it's the same thing that we're doing here. Like, we're trying to build a space for people to interact and be proud of what they do, show off what they do, and let the ecosystem experience that and interact around it. Sander, do you think based on what you've seen of the hub, do you think that we might have actually iterated even above and beyond what those guys built years ago? And folks, before you think that this was like a staged question, A, it wasn't, because I'm not that organized. B, Sander's Dutch. There's literally zero bullshit that's going to come out of his mouth.
That's a bold statement, but so I think having been in various communities, having done contributions there, I think it's great to give a stage to people that contribute a lot, right? I think it's great to give them recognition and what have you. However, I think it's on the long run not as sustainable, right? Because either everyone gets super famous and then you're not famous anymore, or people become resentful because they have not been recognized. What I like about the Community Hub is the fact that we give, we try to make the motivation a bit more intrinsic. It can be with small points. It can be with, badges, that kind of stuff. We're talking on our Shopware podcast. We're talking to Nam Lee, our colleague from Vietnam. I want to do a podcast about Stack Overflow, and we did an integration into the Community Hub to kind of encourage people to become more active on Stack Overflow. And what he said is, the reason why I do this, first of all, I like to teach people to do stuff. But second, I get addicted to the fact that I get badges and points and that kind of stuff on the Community Hub, right? And I think that is the kind of motivation that's much more sustainable, because this is a race with yourself, right? And that's much more fun than racing with others.
But it's a race with yourself. I mean, come on. That's what do they say at what they used to say on Mage Talk, like, show title right there. It's a race with yourself. That's a really good point, Dennis. Yeah, does that resonate with you? Like, it's a race with yourself. So Dennis and I actually, we were chatting yesterday, just catching up. We were talking a little bit about, and I think the thing about intrinsic, extrinsic motivation, my degree is in psychology, and I've I made zero money with that besides being a bartender. But one of the things I told you this yesterday morning, Dennis, that one of the things that was most fascinating. I mean, actually, abnormal psych was really fascinating. I mean, that was the most interesting thing I did. Maybe second to that was motivational, sort of the science around motivation, right? Because different people are motivated in different ways. Nothing's wrong or right. It's just we work differently. And there are people who they want the XP. They need somehow to quantify, and they especially appreciate external and externally visible quantification of what it is they're doing and saying. Others want to be, they want to know that they're providing value. And for them, I guess maybe it's enough just that it's being displayed and shared. And the cool thing is, over time, people can even change. And what one person might experience as a true reward and award, some people might like say, hey, I did this thing. It was awesome. I did it for you all. It'd be great if I could get, $1,000 a month out of it. Other people, if they're contributing heavily, regularly, and you hand them $1,000, like give them like a few months and they will completely like exit an ecosystem. So this is one of the challenges of building something like this, is how do we create a space where people can do all of these things in a way where they can get their own kind of motivation out of it, right? I mean, that really is, if we really step up, away from the things that we wanted to build with the hub, I think that challenge is fundamental to building anything like this. It doesn't matter the industry. Dennis, how do we navigate that? Dennis, I think this is incredibly important to answer, because people don't show up somewhere, especially these days online, unless it's valuable for them. How do we get that right? Did we intend to, or did we just put the things together in the right way and the combination worked? I mean, how is it, as a product leader, how do we come up with the stories and the epics and everything else that have led to this? And by the way, folks, you can't see this. I am actually looking at the hub. It is accessible. It is all the cards, all of the navigation. It actually flows really, really well. Again, I wasn't sure about this thing, but we really have built something special here. So Dennis, tell me how we figured out how to build a system for so many people that wasn't e-commerce, right?
Well, I think again, it's about talking to the people and also giving them choice. So really early in that process, we identified that we have that broad range of, so let's take the community profile, for example. So for some members, they clearly said, okay, the profile where I can show my activity and this is how I contribute on GitHub and this is the badges I have and this is the certification I have and this is my role in this universe. For some people, that is incredibly important from a personal and from a business perspective. And for others, they're like, I don't care about that profile in the community or so. I just want to learn. I want to get better. I'm just doing it for me. So I think it's about talking to people and understanding that range, and then also giving people choice. So you can decide to make your profile public and show to the world, even to those who are not in the hub, so that you can just show publicly, I am focusing on Shopware, and this is my role in this universe.
Yeah.
And for others, it's not relevant, so they don't want to share that explicitly. And I think that's the important thing. And also, kind of, I think one key is really that came again and again, having some notion of transferring that digital world into the real world. So if you get a badge in the real world on an event, for example, like a cool shiny metal badge, maybe you want to have it digital in your hub as well. But also the other way around, maybe you made a great achievement in the Shopware community and got the digital badge. People really appreciate if they then get a real, like a metal badge, and they have it like physically in front of them. That's something that's really valued. So people are proud of that. That's even a bit more than just, merchandising. It's more than just a Shopware swag.
Shopware has we'd be remiss if we didn't discuss the fair usage policy that Shopware's just talked about. It's about how do we have both, sort of maintain the openness of an open source application, which Shopware Community Edition always is. It's a bit of a third rail touch right here, by the way, folks. Certainly not authorized by our PR or marketing teams, but I think it's important. It's an important context, right? We want people who are generating the kind of revenue with Shopware that they should have a relationship with us to have a relationship with us, and it's not an extraordinary relationship. And I think we've done it. It's a difficult topic, and I think we've done it in a really fair, balanced way. And for the record, folks, I used to work for Magento. We talked about that shit all the time. We tried to can we do this? Can we not do this? Well, we were watching our peers from other open source ecosystems dealing with this problem. I think Shopware's gone about it in a really fair way, but getting back to the impetus for the hub, I think the context is important because it allows us to take that investment, incremental investment, it's not much, and plow it back into the ecosystem. How much time and hours, how much opportunity cost went into building this? I'm not going to ask for a specific number, but I mean, is it on the order? Was it tens of hours to build this? Was it hundreds? Was it thousands of hours? Again, over a year to build this thing. And by the way, again, folks, this was built internally by people who could have been building stuff for the Shopware, the next Shopware release.
We really have to think about it.
What is a full team? Actually, I don't even know at Shopware. What is a full team at Shopware?
Right now, it's 5 developers working on that. It's the UX engineer, and UX engineer being responsible for that. I'm putting a majority of my head time into that project as well.
Really?
Working with other, yes. And we're working with other departments, of course, a lot. We're working with marketing. So it is a lot that we are investing into this, because we strongly believe that this investment is good for our ecosystem, and in the end, of course, contributes all of our success.
If I had one complaint about the hub, right? Well, I mean, I have some nuanced feedback, but if I had a complaint about the hub, it would be that we didn't build it earlier. And if I had a separate complaint, it would be that I didn't think of it. But again, that's why you and I work for Mark Stanley. Sander, you've been part of education initiatives in open source e-commerce applications before. what would you say your impression of what we built here? And I'm going to lead into the final topic. Where do you see this going? Like where, if you can see this iterate, or if you do see this iterating, what more might we do?
Those are big questions. So I think the way we set it up with the learning paths and the units, and right, it's very modular. You don't, and I really like this, a lot of the platforms out there expect you to become a ninja in their platform. Like you want to know from A to Z everything. Reality is most developers don't. Maybe they're working with several platforms. Maybe they just need to build a payments integration, right? And they couldn't care less about the rest of the stuff. So it's nice that they can mix and match, pick the bits and bobs that they like, and just discard the rest. On top of that, we also have information, not just for developers, but for solution specialists, merchants, and there's more to come. So I think we're also enabling not just the developer, but the whole agency and the whole client. So the whole team working with the solution. I think that is very powerful. Then where I see this going, I think it's going to get so much more powerful the moment that we're going to get direct feedback and contributions from the community, where they go in and they say, look, I love what you wrote about the shopping experiences, but actually on a day-to-day basis, this is not how we're using it. Right? This is, you might think we're using it this way, but actually we are hacking everything together and we'd like to do it that way. I think that kind of insight, like that real world, this is how we use your product, because guess what? Shopware doesn't use the product themselves, right? We don't host our own shops. So we have no clue how people used it. Well, that's not true. But I think that direct feedback loop and that contribution from community, that is what is going to make our learning capabilities even more well.
Yeah. And let me maybe add to that, like in the very early stages of constructing our approach on the learning pathways was really about, let's not focus on, we want to create learning content for the sake of learning content being there and just aiming for a certification and all of that. Speaking as an engineer, it's always about you want to get shit done. You want to get your problem solved, right? That's what we are aiming for. And the learning content should aim for enablement. That's the goal, and not like the sake of having a full blown A to Z experience of learning with everything. It's about getting shit done.
Getting shit done. I guess every software adjacent person's like that's the, I'm old enough to remember the GSD shirts. There's an idea. Get shopware done. There it is. There's the show title. There's the tattoo. Yeah. All right. Okay. So guys, we knew coming into this, we could talk about this stuff for literally hours. Sander, you're about ready to go to an after party, and my God, it's so painful to not be there. It really, you know me well. It's really difficult to not be at the Webwinkelwachttage. Okay. So, 30 seconds, Sander. In 6 months, what do you expect to see and or do when it comes to the Shopware Community Hub?
What I'll be doing, I don't know. Honestly, I hope I'll be at these events talking about the solution. What I hope to see is that people have complete profiles, that they have, contributed a lot, and that they're starting to see the recognition that they want to see for all the work that they have done so far in the past, and that they haven't had the recognition for.
And sorry, but man, I shouldn't even do this. This is illegal. But you've been involved with so much education initiatives over the years. So I also think, it may not have occurred to you, but I also think you'd be very, very happy to see education, because it's an enablement mechanism, education as continuing to be a first-class citizen with full budget and support at Shopware. And I'm going to put more words in your mouth. You would love to see education content being created by the ecosystem in nuanced ways. Again, folks, there was no agenda here, but I'm making
that most of all because it's fun to do, but I'm kind of tired of that shit. I want to do other stuff. So I'd love for other people to write the content. Absolutely.
Yeah. Especially the practitioners, the people actually doing the work. I mean, you still are, but I'm not. Anyway, Dennis, what would this is kind of your baby, right? I mean, you just told us all, you put the majority of your time and expertise into this thing over the last year. When you sit back and you in the same chair with all your guitars there, and you put your hands behind your head. What would give you a moment to say, damn, we really knocked it out of the park, kicked it off the pitch? I'll use appropriate sports metaphors for our international audience. Cricketed the bat or batted the cricket. I don't even know. What would make you exceptionally happy in 6 months' time?
I think it's about when we prove that we have built the appropriate basis for a system that thrives with the community, so that you get in and you see like people being there, things happening, people discussing about things, people helping each other and contributing and collaborating with each other, and identifying synergy effects and working together for the greater good of all our success.
For the greater good. Damn it. That's the show title.
Again. Like this activity and the whole hub thriving and people getting value and adding value to it. That's, I think, the goal, because we are just creating the base for it, the system, the home for the community that enables us to work together here. But it has to be used, and that's what I would aim for. Yeah,
it has to be used. I could see that might be a show title, right? It has to be used, which means that we have to have built the thing that people want to use, and we have to curate it. We have to create an environment in which it's curated, right, by the ecosystem, because we will not be the ones. I think actually something that should be said before we conclude this whole thing, the culture around this, we're not sitting there saying like, hey, push the delete button on this post because it goes against our interests. It's a foregone conclusion that people are going to talk about things, and they're going to talk about things in ways that we couldn't predict, that may not always be necessarily to our best benefit. But there's no doubt in my mind that Shopware is going to be facilitating of the conversation. We will not be the ones writing that, like scripting this interaction. This is something that we have built for the ecosystem.
Like 2 hours ago, I was in a quick conception regarding resources like blog articles, for example, being contributed, and how will they be represented in the hub and stuff. And there we like had that very clear notion of, so there will be content like blog articles, for example, provided from us, and they are Shopware curated, and that's all good. And we, in the end, like discussed, okay, those should be like, yeah, there's a gray notion of Shopware curated, maybe also, that's cool. But there are other content pieces and other blogs that have been provided by the community, and those should be like colorful, shiny, and that's like appreciated. And let's celebrate those, because they are coming directly from the community and not only from us. Yes, we will also provide stuff, of course, but things coming from the community, that's something we should really celebrate.
I hadn't really considered that, but yeah, you're right. I mean, we do know intuitively that our best work is, well, let me not put words in everyone's mouth. Our best work is actually, it's not what we do. It's what we do in the hands of the people who do the things with our work. That's who we build for. That's why we build. These are the problems that we solve. I feel free to disagree with me, but I've always maintained that, especially in this open source e-commerce approach, the whole point of the exercise is not that company builds a platform, an amazing platform that's immensely extendable. It's that the practitioners actually get to take that work and actually apply it to the various domains and geographies, approaches, right? Is that like, do we see that the hub facilitates that?
I think yes, absolutely. It's basically, it fits to. There's this. You had a talk on the SCD 2022, I believe, and there's a video of that. I think it's still on our website, because it is still true. Like, that's the main idea of open source, right? And Shopware very, very clearly identifies with open source, and this is why we express those values in the community hub as well, of course. So yes, definitely.
Okay, Sander, agree? Disagree?
I think I wholeheartedly agree. I think Dennis put it very poetically.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, folks. So there's an address. Dennis, if people want to check out the hub, get involved. Again, there's no commitment. There's no requirement that you perform. You can show up and watch until you get so interested that you start doing things. How do people find the community hub for Shopware?
So right now the URL is still hub-community beta.shopware.com. So we are still in an open beta phase. Not
We're still in our Google phase.
not so for so much longer. So there's a few interesting things progressing right now. But this is how you reach it. It's open. You can log in with either your GitHub or with your community Slack or with your Shopware account. It's completely open. You don't have to newly register or so. Just get in. We have a Slack channel also in our community Slack regarding community hub feedback. That's the name of it. And it's about also interacting. So they're just hub-beta.shopware.com.
I truly don't want this podcast to end. And by the way, I hope in the post-production, like that, if you're watching this in a visible medium, that you will see us just scrolling around, looking at the contributors. We've already discovered people that we didn't know were so prolific, but they're really engaged. When you go to the hub, please, at the very least, if you're watching this podcast, go ahead and register. Just be there. Give it a try. If you feel like interacting, do that. At the very least, you can interact through one of the education paths. So if you want to learn more about Shopware, if you want to just verify what you know about Shopware as a practitioner, the learning paths are there. They're really, really well done. As a longtime educator in this space, I'm really impressed. Shopware has really spent an immense amount of intent. I won't talk about euros. I won't talk about developer product hours. I won't talk about opportunity costs. It's a backhanded way, by the way, of talking about all those things. But we poured a lot of intent into the system, and we did it completely irrespective of any commercial concerns. This was something that needed to be done. It needed,
in those early stages, it was really that notion. I talked about that with Mark. Like, it's not about can we afford doing that. It's about can we afford not doing that.
Can we afford not doing that? Right? What's the classic thing is, why would I pay my developers, or why would I pay for them to be educated? Why would you want developers who aren't educated? It really is about raising the level, raising the bar. I could even foresee practical discussions about other ecosystems, other solutions on this. I mean, if it's truly meaningful, well, again, it's in the hands of the ecosystem. We built it for you all. That's what we've done. And I think everyone involved feels immensely, immensely proud. And kudos again to Mark Stanley's leadership. Kudos especially to our founders. At the end of the day, Stefan, Sebastian, and also to the investors. Like, we've hopefully spent your money well. I think we have. This is for me one of the top examples of this kind of thing in just really anywhere. So well done, everyone. There will be more discussion, more directed discussion about the hub going forward. And then in the future, it's our plan to just have a regular update, a brief update from us that you can watch on YouTube, where we just kind of go through what people are doing. Because that's actually really the interesting stuff, not the fact that this thing exists, but that, what are the people doing with it, right? Because we want to surface all of the good stuff that people are doing. Dennis Höting, Sander Mangel, what a great with you guys. Look forward to seeing you both again sometime soon. And let's just spend the rest of the day celebrating the hub at Shopware.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.